Dude, are you ready for this? We have huge pony car news right now.
Yeah, that's right. So Ford just dropped the horsepower numbers on the all-new 2024 Ford Mustang.
Yes, and we have the EcoBoost 2.3 numbers and details. We have the V8 5-liter. They say it's the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 Mustang ever.
Yeah, that's right. Now, it's still a version of the Coyote 5-liter. However,
Yep.
it's a new generation. And we also have numbers on the EcoBoost, including fuel economy. And this is a really big day, of course, because the Mustang is the most iconic Ford nameplate in their lineup. So let's get right into it. Should we start with the low power or the high power numbers? Maybe we should start with the EcoBoost numbers.
Yeah,
huh?
well, I think this is the car we're showing now. So let's just talk about it because the EcoBoost is a 2.3-liter 4-cylinder turbo. And it's been around in their lineup, of course, before.
Now, here's what the press release says about the EcoBoost engine.
Yeah.
According to Ford, the EcoBoost Coupe and Convertible feature a new engine from the ground up, which is interesting because it's the same displacement as the old EcoBoost, but
Yep.
they say it incorporates Ford's new modular power cylinder engine architecture, driving prowess in design and function, and is targeted to improve EPA fuel economy. It also uses a new bore and stroke, port fuel injection, I'm just so excited, I'm knocking stuff over.
That's my Texas boot.
Direct
My cowboy
injection.
boot.
So they're saying a lot of things.
Well, so that's a lot of marketing words, but I noticed two words, a new bore and stroke ratio. So just kind of the way the engine is reorganized is new, according to this press release, right?
Yeah.
And the horsepower is 315 horsepower, and the torque is the same as before, right? 350 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, so we are seeing a slight bump in horsepower, right
Yeah.
around 5 more horsepower compared to the 2022 model year. So, that is a slight bump. Torque is the same. Now, Ford also says that this engine has direct injection, variable cam timing, integrated exhaust gas recirculation, and twin-scroll turbocharging technologies.
Yeah, so, and I was fortunate to drive both versions of the Mustang in the current generation, both the EcoBoost and the 5-liter GT V8 cars, and they have different characters, right? The EcoBoost is a lot more lightweight. It just feels kind of a little bit more light and a little bit more precise maybe. And then there's the Brute, the 5-liter just feels a little bit heavier,
Right.
a little bit more substantial, and also probably too much power for the skill level that I have. I think that's also why you see a lot of Mustangs leaving Cars and Coffee sideways, and sometimes they go somewhere else.
Very well could be, Andre. Now, according to the press release here, it's the most standard power in a 4 or 6-cylinder Mustang ever. And Mustang EcoBoost also offers the optional active valve performance exhaust system designed for even more excitement from its turbocharged soundtrack.
You could see those pipes right there.
So it sounds like even though the displacement's the same, the overall engine philosophy is the same in the EcoBoost, because they're changing the bore, the stroke, twin-scroll turbo, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
it does sound like it's a pretty fresh power plant.
Yeah, and also there's other vehicles in their lineup that share the same kind of architecture of the engine, namely the Ford Ranger. So I'm kind of excited for some truck news coming out next year. Maybe they're going to boost the Ranger horsepower numbers as well. So those are good things. But let's get to the V8, shall we?
Yeah, so we actually have a few different outputs on the V8. So let's
Okay.
start with the standard Mustang GT. So the standard Mustang GT will employ 480 horsepower with the standard exhaust. And according to the Ford, that's the most power in a naturally aspirated V8 powered Mustang ever. So that's at the base end of the spectrum, 480. Now that is up some 30 horsepower compared to the current Mustang.
Yeah, and actually there was kind of a leaked information a few weeks ago where somebody was showing the Monroney sticker, the window sticker, and it said 450 horsepower. That's old news. Forget about it. This is official numbers, 480. But then they also say up to 486 horsepower, correct?
Yeah, and how do you get that extra power?
Well, I think magic. No, there's also special exhaust system, right?
Yes.
Actually, they improved the engine. They say they kind of did a new balanced camshaft. They have forged piston rods. So
But that I think is a dark horse.
Oh, that's the dark horse.
We're just talking about the standard GT.
Sorry, I was getting excited.
So
I'm sorry.
let's talk about that exhaust unit on the standard GT. According to Ford, the available active valve performance exhaust system enables Mustang GT Coupe and Convertible to deliver 486 horsepower, 418 pound-feet of torque. Beyond the boost in power, the system's free-flowing design delivers a custom V8 sound with the ability to close the valves to restrict the amount of noise made by the car. So if, for example, you're waking up in the morning, right, you got neighbors near you, you can kind of quiet down the engine when you leave the house.
That's really important. And of course, we didn't mention it yet, but we've showed this Mustang before to you guys, right?
Oh,
You were there in person, actually.
Yeah. I saw it in person.
And all new interior, and of course modes, right? We're talking about modes, so quiet mode, sport modes, and the exhaust system can be kind of adjusted for that.
Now, when we look at the standard GT, one of the things they included in the press release is that the 4th gen Coyote, which is the generation of this V8, features a segment-first dual intake and dual throttle body induction system. So it's said to breathe better, and they're also talking about structural improvements and an upgraded oil pan. This helps minimize induction loss by enabling higher airflow rates. So they're calling it an all-new generation of 5-liter Coyote V8. Let us know what you think of that in the comment section below. Did they do enough to it?
Well, we need to drive it still and kind of experience the car. But I also want to point out, so for the V8, they have several transmission options as well.
Yeah.
Which is I'm really happy about. So they have the 10-speed automatic, of course, and that's a similar transmission as far as gear ratios to the EcoBoost. Then they also have 2 versions of the manual, right? The 6-speed. Dude, the manual is still here. This is pretty exciting.
That it sure is. Now, we also need to talk about the top dog Mustang. Now, we don't know any information about 2024 Shelby. We don't know any information about any of like those Shelby models, but we do know about this new model, Andre.
Yes, the dark horse.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. So this
Yes.
is kind of bridging the gap between the standard GT lineup and the Shelby models. Now, what's the horsepower in this guy, Andre?
Well, it's a round number. It's 500 horsepower. So, and I already kind of let the cat out of the bag. But kind of they redid some of the internals of that engine, right?
Yeah. So 500 horsepower, they're still saying 418 pound-feet of torque, but let's talk about some of those changes on the internals.
Yeah, so they took some of the learnings from the GT500. You mentioned the Shelbys, right?
Yeah.
So of course, they had the higher performance Mustangs for a very long time. So they're taking some of those learnings that they had from the GT500 lineup, which is also supercharged engine, right? And they're applying it to this naturally aspirated V8, which is pretty cool. And 500 horsepower, you can just brag about, hey, my Coyote now makes around 500 horsepower. That's cool.
Now, here's what they're saying about this Dark Horse engine. Like you mentioned, Andre, a lot of lessons learned from the Shelby. So we're talking about a uniquely balanced crankshaft and forged piston connecting rods. The latter first introduced on the GT500 to handle higher pressures. Mustang Dark Horse also sports strengthened camshafts for track durability needs, including extended operation closer to its 7,500 RPM redline.
Ooh, can you imagine the sound of that?
Ooh, doggy.
Yes, I would agree. Mustangs, to me at least, the V8 Mustangs always had the unique sound. You can kind of hear it, coming down the street or whatever it's doing. And I'm glad they're continuing that and also keeping the RPM high and just, I think, making it cooler than ever.
Yeah, and of course, the most powerful ever naturally aspirated V8 in the Mustang lineup. Now, currently, the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 would be like the Mach 1 Mustang, which is sitting right around 470. So we're seeing a jump of 30. Of course, that Mach 1 nameplate is not carrying over to the 7th generation just yet.
Or at least not yet, right?
Yeah, not yet.
They haven't announced anything, but the convertible's still there.
Yeah.
So you can get a convertible version of the Mustang, not a Dark Horse convertible.
No.
At least not yet, but the Dark Horse performance model is only available as a coupe or coupe.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Andre.
And efficiency, well, they redid the 4-cylinder, right, to improve efficiencies a little bit, right?
Yeah, so they did.
This is the current stuff.
So let's talk about the most efficient model you can get right now. As you can see, Andre, 25 combined, 22 city, 32 highway.
Yes.
Ford is saying on the new base model, they are targeting 22 city, 34 highway, and 26 combined.
So the highway goes up by 2,
Yep.
and the combined goes up by 1 for the new EcoBoost.
Exactly right, Andre.
And we don't have this number yet, right? The V8?
No, they haven't announced the V8, and once again, those are just targeted numbers, so we'll have to wait and see what the final numbers are, but they're showing slight improvement. So more power, at least in the V8s, more torque in the EcoBoost models. And what do you think of the new design? Do you like it?
I do. I think all the way bigger screens. I like bigger screens. I love that they kind of redesigned the interior a little bit. Not too much, but they have new themes, of course. I love that. I just want to experience it for myself. I love that the 3 pedals are still here.
Yeah.
The clutch and the manual. I've said it before. Here's a convertible. Actually, let me show another view of the convertible right here. And yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement. Of course, they have the electric Mach-E crossover Mustang, but I'm still glad that this is traditional and cool.
Now, the one number which isn't up that much is the torque number. Current model is like 410 pound-feet. This new one's 418, so we're up like 8 pound-feet or so, which is an improvement, but it's not like a leap forward. I think that this generation, the 7th generation Mustang, is a nice departure in design. I feel like a lot of folks out online feel like they didn't do quite enough to differentiate it from the 6th generation. They made it more angular, and I'm glad to see some power improvements. But for example, we're still running a Coyote V8, still similar EcoBoost, right, in terms of power. Transmissions are actually a couple different transmissions, as you teased. So the standard V8 gets a Getrag, and then
Yeah, we have some information here.
the Dark Horse gets the Tremec, right?
Exactly. And the gearing is a little bit different between the 2 manuals, so it's important. So I would say I would be lusting after the Dark Horse. It has a little bit lower gearing, 373 for the Dark Horse, Torsen limited slip rear axle. So really aggressive. So I think my ultimate dream new Mustang would probably have to be the Dark Horse.
Well, let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Has Ford done enough to improve the 7th generation of Mustang in terms of power numbers? I know this has been Tommy.
And Andre, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And oldtfl.com is where you will find everything automotive in one place.